Okay, so this is applicable to any dq200, MK6, 7, Audi A3, 8V, 8P. There's your dq200 mechatronics over there. Now, first thing we want to do, remove the battery. Obviously remove the airbox out of the way. If there's an airbox here on the MK7s and 8Vs, the airbox is over there, so you don't need to worry about that, but remove the battery. Once you got the battery out, remove this tray here. The battery tray on the 6s just bolts here. On the 7 you also have a 10mm over there, and the 8V you have a 10mm over there, so just make sure you undo these bolts plus the nut over there. Once you remove this cover over here, okay, we're going to come to the back of this over here. Now this cover here, this is the breather. You can feel oil from here, but it does take a while. What we need to do is we need to undo this 10mm bolt here. Then we need to undo these 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 10mm. Yep. So we want to remove this piece. Okay. Obviously, if you're removing the gearbox, you can pull the clip out and whatnot, but we're not doing that. We're just going to take this apart so we can access the neutral selector fork in here, and also when we need to fill up oil in there. Okay. So let's start with that before we get to this section here. Once you can pull that cover off there.
What is it?
I'm just making a film. Once you can pull that cover off there, over on this side you'll see here, there's a point where you can lever. Let's see if I can get to that point. You can put a screwdriver in there and pop it at a gear, should the mechatronics not want to slide out forwards. Now, this car, it's a bit messy because this car has a lot of extra hoses and stuff like that, but basically this plug here needs to come off. Okay, so we'll just find a place to put the, so that plug there needs to come up. So you just pull that up, and once you pull that up, that just comes off. As you can see, that closes and opens nice and easy. And that's how you remove it from that plug. Now we have two bolts up here. We have a bolt over there. See if I can get to it. You can see that bolt over there. We have that bolt. And we have also this bolt over here. Okay. Those two bolts are the ones we need to undo at the top, before we get to the ones underneath and work on underneath the car. Yep, so just T45. Now bear in mind, if you have an accumulator problem, okay, just remember, don't undo this bolt if you see it's bulging here. If it's bulging there, more than likely this accumulator has cracked and it's holding on this bolt. In that case, you need to come to a solution where you need to drill a hole in the accumulator to release the gas out, because you don't want to use an accumulator, you don't want to undo a bolt. If you ever see this bulging here or bent, just make sure you don't undo that before drilling that. Okay, once you're under the car, depending on the engine type, you may see that there's some things that hinder the mechatronics from coming out, such as the mechatronics is going to hit this water pipe over here. It's also going to hit this intercooler pipe over here. So on this particular car, I'm going to disconnect the intercooler pipe and the water pipe to give the mechatronics some space to be removed. Okay, once you've undone your lines and you've got some clearance for the actual mechatronics, as you can see, this mechatronics can now be removed from this gearbox. Now you can see this is the mechatronics, this is the gearbox. This is actually a manual gearbox with an automatic mechatronics that makes it automatic, and the mechatronics should come off and it should end up looking pretty much like this. Okay, so this is a mechatronics removed, and inside the mechatronics you have the accumulator which holds the pressure. This pressure is 60 bar of pressure, so be careful about removing this cover, because this accumulator can explode if there's cracks in here that screw the accumulator into this. Second of all, the TCU sits onto the mechatronics here, and then it gets sandwiched between the gearbox and the mechatronics. So now, two things. Number one, we need to drain the gearbox oil. This is just normal 75, 85 manual gearbox fluid, 1.8 liters. We need to undo this because when we undo these bolts, gearbox oil is going to come out from here. Now, this DSG Mechatronics uses power steering fluid, Volkswagen power steering fluid, which is also known as VDAS. Now, it takes 1 liter of power steering fluid in here, and the gearbox takes 1.8 liters of gearbox oil in there. That's the drain bolt for the Mechatronics, and that's the drain bolt for the gearbox. These oils do not mix. Now over here, you want to separate. This is your speed sensor. Early Mechatronics have the speed sensor. Late Mechatronics, they deleted the speed sensor on the newer TCUs. So 16 and onwards, Volkswagen and Audi vehicles do not have speed sensor. Then you got your 2 clutch forks over here. Now that's where we put the fork tool. The first step is, let's drain the fluid from here, and let's drain the fluid from here as we're going to be separating this. Now you don't have to drain the fluid from here, but if you want to take the computer off the Mechatronics, you want to drain that fluid. So let's crack those bolts open and get it sorted. Be careful not to strip this bolt. This is an Allen key bolt, T10. I think it's a 10 mil, and I believe that's a 5. Take the gearbox out of the gearbox and store it in a container just for gearbox oil. Purpose I'm draining the Mechatronics fluid, as I'm going to be taking the computer off it. So I've drained the Mechatronics fluid as well. There's a liter of green fluid right there, caught up, and now I'll put the screw back in, and then we'll call it a day. At this point, remove the speed sensor. Stick a screwdriver in there, pop it out, and it will come out. And then we're going to have to get the fork removal tool to lock in the forks. I'll show you that in a second. Your clutch removal tool, you'll see this curve here. This curve here has to land there. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure the curve's on this side. Okay, the dot's facing the back of the car. Slide it in like this, and just work your way to get in. Sometimes you may need a screwdriver to lever it, but depending on the situation, it should actually just get in like that. Once it's in like that and it's situated like that, as you can see over there, you can see it's ready to turn. So now if I turn this and I rotate, you'll see now those clutches are separated from the Mechatronics over here. But this is a little out, so I'm just going to push it in a little bit more with a screwdriver. Just get a screwdriver, angle it like that, and just give this a gentle tap to make sure this is more flush in. I'll just give it a tap right now. So you've got to factor in that part there needs to clear the plastic. You can see the plastic part of the TCU touching, and that's why that's not fully engaged. So I like to tap it up a bit, and then that part there will clear the plastic over there. As you can see, that clears that. And I'll just tap that in with the screwdriver, and then alright, so once those 2 forks are separated, as you can see, they're not actually the pistons are not actually touching over here. Piston's not actually touching the 2 clutch forks. We can actually undo this bolt, this bolt, and this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and we've already undone the 2 top ones. So we're ready for removal of the Mechatronics. So all you need to do is get a T45. Start with the little ones. The ones they've got long ones and short ones. So just start with that one and that one, and then obviously that one, and then that one and that one, and then you're ready to come undone because the top ones have already been done. Everything T45. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But the 2 top ones should be already undone. make sure that the fork clears the TCU over here. Hit it up a little bit if it doesn't. Make sure that they're ready to come out, and yeah. Okay, lift it, wiggle it. Now if you see that it comes out here and here and there, but does not come out on the top left, it's because that fork on the other side is grabbed it on the inside. Now there's two techniques. One, I sometimes wiggle it a little bit without, keep in mind that you don't want to break the sensors on the inside. So I just wiggle it. Okay, this is one of those cases where it's not coming out that way. So what we'll do is we will access it from the top. So as you can see, it's sitting right there. It's waiting to come out. But unfortunately, one of the actual selectors, the top left one, is what's getting it caught. So what I like to do is I like to stick a screwdriver in here and then just go put a cushion underneath to catch it just in case it falls out. Come over here, stick the screwdriver in this way and then push this way. You should hear that click. Did you hear that click? Now that's now ready to come out. If we grab that, more than likely it will fall down. Yep, she's ready. Pull it up, pull it out. Now we have our mechatronic. Should look like this. Both your clutch forks should be pressed back, ready to be, for the new mechatronics to be slid in. These are this is just a manual gearbox inside. These are your selectors. Okay, put that in neutral. Put that in neutral. And what we need to do is we need to get a screwdriver, because some of the forks are hard to move. Now one of the other common problems is the bearing fails up there and gets one of these forks jammed. But ideally we want that one to be neutral and that one to be neutral. So that's a neutral, that's a neutral, that's a neutral, that's a neutral. And how you know is you could see the synchrone right here. You see the synchrone right there. Okay, when it's in neutral, if it's in gear, like that's left and that's right, and obviously that's neutral state. So you want every single four of these forks to be in the middle. Okay, push them left and right with a screwdriver, because the piston needs to slide into each one of the forks. And these are the pistons here. Here we have our old mechatronics with computer on it, and here we have our new mechatronics which we're putting in the car. As you can see, this is a complete mechatronics without the computer. It's got the accumulator, it's got the pistons on the side, and it's got the selectors and the solenoids and the motor and everything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to close these pistons here, and then we're going to get a T25. And we're going to undo all the black ones. So here, just take off every single one. There's a bunch of them. We'll leave these two, the loose, like we won't undo them all the way, just in case there's pressure, hydraulic pressure. Okay. Okay, now that these are all undone, you can take these out. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll get a screwdriver and we'll try to lift the side up gently to remove the computer. Now, get a screwdriver, just lift it, lift it. and then just lift it, and eventually you'll get to a point where it all comes up. We just want to clean the new surface because we're going to put it on the new surface here. So we'll just clean it to make sure there's no debris on any of the seals, because there's going to be a seal around the motor here. There's going to be a seal around here, a seal here, and then we'll just clean it over here as well. And yeah, once we're ready to put it in, there you go, we're ready. Now you take the computer off. That just comes off. As you can see, when you flip it this way, you want to make sure that the seal here on this side is good. This seal is good, this seal is good, and this seal is good. And you want to make sure that you have the green O-ring ready to put in the new one. You need a pick just in case your new one doesn't have it. There's a pick. We'll put the seal on there. This is your computer. Now this computer here needs to go on the new mechatronics. Okay, so just slide it in. As you can see, we'll just slide it in, wiggle it in, and then at that point you can just push down on all the ends and it should go in. And once you feel like it's gone in, this is really annoying how this seal has come out here, but once you've got it all in, at that point you can put the screws, make sure these are all lined up, put it in and put the screws on. And then once we've got all the screws lined up, we can then just slowly just work your way around everything. Just tighten each screw gently. And then once you feel like the TCU is now placed properly on the mechatronics, at that point you can go over all the screws and tighten them. So now, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now that all the screws are tight, this mechatronics is now complete to go back in the car. However, we need to fill this with oil. Now that's the breather over here, and this is the oil fill point. You could fill it from either or, but I usually like to open this so then the air can escape from this while this is getting filled with 1 litre of fluid. Notice that some mechatronics, if it's MK6/8P, will have longer, and if it's MK7/8V, it will have shorter clutch pistons. So that's one thing to know if you're going from mechatronics for a different type of car. Because these two are from the same type of car, there's no issue there. At this point we're going to get our 5mm. We're going to undo the fill plug, make sure the drain plug is tightened, and now we've got our fill plug open, and we're going to put our funnel in our fill plug. Take our smallest funnel, the free funnel set, and we fill up LDAS oil. This is the oil that has been made for Audi and Volkswagen vehicles because it complies with VW 52146, which is G2000/G4000 M2. So if you search G2000 M2 oil, that's the original oil that comes for the mechatronics, and it's also the same oil for MK4 Golf power steering. So once you have that oil, this oil here, the green oil, you just simply pour it in. And as you're pouring in that oil, what you want to do is when you get to about 90% full, I'm reusing this oil because I'm testing out this mechatronics, but basically as you fill it up, you're going to get to 3/4 of the way full, and then you need to do the bleed process. So the bleed process is this, right? Once it's full, you get the piston. You hear that noise? There's no tension there, so there's air there. So you need to get all the air out. Sometimes when you fill this up all the way, even after you fill it up all the way, sometimes it might overflow, but in that reality what you actually need to do first is to get the air out. So let's just say we're at this point now. And now this becomes hard and smooth, and you shouldn't be able to hear any air bubbles. If you still hear air bubbles, keep filling up until there's no air bubbles. And you've got to repeat the same process with all the pistons. See, there's still air in it. So I need to add some more fluid to it. So let's add another 100 mils. That should be enough. Okay. There you go. Now there's no air left in the system and it comes out smoothly. So just repeat that for all 4 of them. And also these 2, pull them in and out. Make sure there's no air left in the system. You want them to have resistance. I haven't done this one yet. Okay. Once we're satisfied with that, let's put a little more. Okay. Once we're satisfied with that outcome, at that point we're going to align these all to 25 mil. Yeah, so once you fill it up, it needs a litre of oil. Okay, if it's underfilled, you can always fill it up to the top here. It will leak out from here when you start the vehicle if you overfill it, but if you underfill it, you'll have air in it. So naturally speaking, you'd want to clear the air out of it. Pull each one of these out to 25 mil. Make sure they're at 25 mil or 1 inch, as you can see. So the tip of it needs to be there. Alright, check this one. Perfect. So all 4 are ready to be slid in, and now we just lift this up and slide it straight into the car. Have 2 screws ready, the long ones preferably. Now if you accidentally bump one of these, it's going to come out of position and you won't, some of the gears will not shift. So it's absolutely important that you do not bump one of your pistons putting it in. That's why the clutch fork is so useful, because without that fork right now we would have a problem. Now if you've done everything right, it should just slide straight in like that. Sometimes you may need to give it a tap here, because the plastic here will get caught on this tool because it's a Chinese tool. But then once it's done, this all should be flat. So as you can see here, this is all flat. We'll put a screw in there, top. Supporting it from above, we'll put in a screw here. Just tighten them by hand so you don't have any play so it doesn't fall back out again. And once those 2 screws are in, you can get your tool and start screwing in the rest of the screws. Now at this point we can remove our clutch tool. Just bring this to the side here. Rotate the tool sideways, lift it this way and slide it out. And that tool is out. Now we can simply just put our speed sensor back on. There's this hole over there and over here. Line them up. That clips in. Speed sensor's on. Our plug needs to be connected there. We'll just put some of these accessories back on, because when we start the car we don't want it to leak more water. That's in. That's in. And we'll connect up our plugs. We can leave that disconnected. And now we'll give it a start and we'll just see what happens. Obviously keep the wheels off the ground by some distance. Now just so oil doesn't flick onto this way, we'll just put the cover on and we'll just put 2 bolts in just to prevent any oil flicking all over the entire gearbox, because we're going to go through all the gears. Doesn't need to be tightened, but just, you know, just give it a hand tight. Pull that out of the way. Okay, throw our little 10mm in there. There you go. Now connect our mechatronics plug, which is this plug here. Connect that plug into the side here. Just hold it evenly while sliding this down, and that should just clip straight in. Clip right in right there. Now we can connect. We can put the battery, and we can test and see what happens. We'll just shove this out of the way. We'll put the battery on top of the gearbox. We're going to have the battery tray on there. We just got the battery loosely on. Now we'll start the vehicle with the wheels off the ground, and we'll proceed to go through all the gears to see if there is any issues. Now start the vehicle. You may want to clear the steering light by turning right and left. That will clear your steering. Now we've got to turn off the traction. Okay. The traction is now off. Some cars you've got to go through the system to do it. On the Golf 7s, on the A3 and S3 there is a traction button as well. Put it into drive, let go of the brake, put the handbrake down. Now you should see, if I go here, it's digital speed. Okay, currently it's in 2nd gear, and we're going to go through all the gears. Third gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, 7th gear. So as you can see, we're at 7th gear at 100 k's. Let's just back off the accelerator, put it neutral, let it roll down to 0. Okay, we'll try repeat again. Let's put in reverse first. We'll come to complete stop, brake on the pedal, reverse, let go. Okay, so it's reversing. Alright, neutral, press the brake, drive, let go of the brake, accelerate, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Okay, so this is a good indication that all the selector forks were aligned correctly the first time. It won't get up to 7th gear without an error, or it will get up to 7th, but then it won't go back to 7th again if you don't have those selector forks aligned. So at this point, press the brake, put it in neutral, make sure, press the brake, put it in park. We now know that we can test drive the vehicle. Alright, now that we've tested the mechatronic and we know this mechatronic works, we might just give it a bit of a quick clean to ensure that it looks the part as well, seeing how all these mechatronics tend to get very dirty very quickly. We'll just go over the bolts, and we'll also plug in all the other electrical things, like for instance on this car I got to connect the O2 sensors, and also some of the other accessories need to be connected. But now we've confirmed that, ensure that this bolt is tightened, ensure that's tightened, ensure that that is tightened, and finish everything underneath, and then obviously we're going to fill the oil for the gearbox above. Alright, this is all together now. Everything's all together from underneath. Brackets are in, everything is in, clips are in for the O2s. Now it's time to finish the top. Alright, time to put manual gearbox oil. We only need 2 litres in there. So currently it has 3 litres, and we're going to fill it up to the 1 litre mark. Just shove that in there like that. And just pour the oil in. Just ignore the sticker, the oil. I'm just using this as I bought in bulk, and we filled the big drum into this small one. So this is not the correct sticker, so just ignore that. It's just normal 75/85 gearbox, manual gearbox oil. The gearbox actually takes 1.9 litres, I think 1.8 or 1.9, but I tend to fill it up an extra 100 ml just in case some leak through the seal or anything like that. It's totally fine. As you can see, it's not full to the top, nowhere near the top. And then it's just a matter of reassemble, putting this cover back on. It's just quicker this way. If you try to fill it from the fill point over here, it's very hard for the air to escape, so what takes 10 seconds to fill will usually take a good half an hour to fill the other way, trying to let the air escape. So yeah, we'll just put this all back, 10 mil there, and the 4 hex bolts, and we can put the cover on. Make sure these 2 bolts are tight, put the battery tray in, take the car for a drive, reset the clutches on the scan tool, and should be all good. Additional step, I'm just running through basic settings. Any scan tool can do this. It's just group 60 for MK6, but MK7 vehicles or MQB vehicles are a little bit more complex. They need a drop down menu with basic settings and measurements, but essentially now I'm just doing basic settings to test drive the vehicle. If you've changed if you've changed the gearbox and or mechatronics, if it's the same computer, then you don't need to do it. But if it's a different computer, you do need to do it. But in this case, I'm just doing it anyway. Okay, that is done. Alright, let's take it for a spin. Alright, so now we're driving. As you can see, it's going through all the gears. It's driving through all the gears. And the car's now driving.